On our newscast tonight, the Navy Chief of Staff stands before a parliamentary audit and tells lawmakers that he wants to accelerate plans to build 3 more Aegis destroyers and also asks for support to beef up naval manpower. Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs continues its groundless claims to the Dokdo Islets. This time on YouTube, Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs responds. And the new iPads are here. They are lighter, faster, and slimmer, but the price tag suggests Apple is still unafraid of its modestly priced rivals. For these stories and more, stay with us.
It is 5 a.m. in Washington, 10 in London, and 6 on a Wednesday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Chan. Thank you for joining us. We begin with Korean military's Ambition 2020.
That is correct. With the security situation in the Asia-Pacific region in flux, the Korean military plans to boost its defense capabilities in the sea and in the air over the next few years.
Our Defense Ministry correspondent Han Da-eun starts us off.
The Korean Air Force reportedly plans to procure stealth-detecting radars by mid-2020 to further boost the nation's air defenses. A military official speaking under the condition of anonymity said the Air Force requested the procurement of stealth-detecting radars in 2011, a request the Joint Chiefs of Staff accepted the following year. The official added it hasn't yet been decided whether to import the radars from overseas or to develop them with Korea's own technology. The move comes as military documents show that Korea's neighbors, particularly China, Japan, and Russia, are racing to lay hands on stealth fighter jets with specific plans to either procure or develop them sometime between 2016 and 2019. Meanwhile, the Korean Navy is hoping to push up the timeline for the procurement of 3 Aegis destroyers, previously scheduled for the year 2020. During a parliamentary audit at the Navy headquarters earlier this Wednesday, Navy Chief of Staff Hwang Gi-cheol expressed confidence that the new timeline was feasible and that the nation would be able to deploy 3 additional KDX-3 Aegis ships before the year 2022. The Joint Chiefs of Staff is set to discuss the details of building the destroyers next month upon the request of the Navy. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
The Korean government is lambasting a video by the Japanese government that lays claim to the Korea-controlled Dokdo Islets. Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs posted a link to a video on YouTube last Wednesday that says Dokdo is Japanese territory. Well, the video contends Japan gained sovereignty over the rocky islets in the 17th century and reaffirmed its claim in 1905. Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Wednesday that it is unacceptable for Japan to use historical inaccuracies for promotional purposes. The Japanese video follows a similar video posted by the Korean Foreign Ministry just 3 days before. Over in the United States, fewer workers found new jobs in September than had it been expected, indicating the country is facing an uphill battle to sustain an economic recovery. But investors welcome the weaker than expected jobs report as it stoked expectations that the U.S. Central Bank will further delay the reduction of monthly bond purchases. Our UDN reports.
The United States turned in a worse-than-expected jobs report, suggesting the country's economy was losing steam even before a budget fight led to a government shutdown. Employers added about 148,000 workers to payrolls in September, falling far short of the 180,000 that many had expected.
But you have businesses that were scared by what happened during the recession. The pace of the recovery has been disappointing, so they've been reluctant to hire. And also, I think you have concerns about the health care law that may be weighing on hiring as well.
On the upside, the number of jobs added were still enough to bring the unemployment rate down to the lowest level since November 2008. The unemployment rate fell by 0.1 percentage point to 7.2% in September. Job prospects, however, doesn't look too good for the month of October, as the 16-day government shutdown and lingering political uncertainties are expected to take a toll on employment.
In terms of jobs, there's no question that the shutdown, the uncertainty associated with the brinksmanship over the debt limit are going to, reduce the number of jobs we otherwise would have got in October, and it's a shame.
Investors, however, were upbeat as they expected the U.S. Federal Reserve to keep the monetary stimulus until early next year, given the poor jobs report. The S&P 500 closed higher by 0.57%, hitting yet another record high. The Dow Jones and the Nasdaq also rose by 0.49% and 0.24% respectively. Asian markets also firmed in early trading, tracking Wall Street gains. Yurian, Arirang News.
Korean companies have agreed to speed up investments worth roughly $9.5 billion. This comes after the government streamlined red tape as part of its campaign to promote investment. Our economics correspondent Hwang Ji-hye reports.
The Korean government's campaign to stimulate corporate investment may be beginning to bear fruits. The Ministry of Strategy and Finance said Wednesday that several major Korean companies have decided to spend more than 10 trillion won, or roughly $9.5 billion in coming months to build new production or quality control facilities. The decisions came after the government took steps to streamline red tapes after hearing difficulties those companies faced. SK Global Chemical, a subsidiary of the nation's leading oil refiner SK Innovation, will invest $950 million later this month to build a factory in the southeastern port city of Ulsan. S-Oil, Korea's third largest refiner, will spend $7.5 billion next January to expand its refinery also in Ulsan. Hyundai Motor, the country's largest automaker, is due to break ground on its $560 million testing facility next February. The planned investments have been stalled due to tough regulations. The government has eased the regulations and revised related laws to speed up corporate spending on facilities. President Park Geun-hye's government, which has given top priority to stimulating investment, has found roughly $25 billion worth of projects being held up due to restrictive regulations. The Park administration has vowed to continue removing unessential regulations to promote investment. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
The Korean government will be looking to create 180,000 new jobs by 2017 by injecting some $8 billion into R&D in the information and communications technology sector. That was the plan announced by the Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning during a weekly cabinet meeting on Wednesday. The 5-year blueprint calls for a focus on 10 future technologies such as holograms, big data, 5th-generation mobile technologies and intelligent software. It falls in line with the Park Geun-hye administration's push for a creative economy where new ideas and innovative technologies lead to new jobs and markets. Korea is formulating a plan to help small and mid-sized enterprises better adapt to its planned free trade agreement with China. Trade Minister Yoon Sang-jik said Wednesday that the trade pact would include a 3-tiered support system that helps businesses to prepare themselves for the added competition. His comments were made during a meeting of the Trade Ministry's Committee on the Korea-China FTA. The committee also discussed ways to inspect agricultural and fisheries imports to minimize the damage to Korean farmers while increasing trade between the two countries. The two countries began negotiations on the FTA in May last year.
Well, Korean rapper Psy, who topped the global pop charts with a song that poked fun at the good life, is now making headlines for his contributions to the nation's economy. Reuters is the latest outlet to credit the K-pop icon whose Gangnam-style single went viral in 2012 with helping to build Korea's brand recognition. Well, it says that Korea has broadened its influence in the Asian region to the extent that it can now offer currency swaps to support other economies. Now, this was possible in part, Reuters said, because Psy and other K-pop artists have helped it raise its profile. Other foreign media outlets have also acknowledged Psy's influence on the Korean economy. The rapper made the front cover of the Spanish edition of Forbes in June, which introduced Psy as the secret behind Korea's growth plan. The disposable income of Korean households continues its steady rise, having risen for a 9th consecutive quarter in annual terms during the April to June period. However, consumption continues to fall.
So what seems to be preventing the average Koreans from spending more, and what can be done to open up consumers' wallets? Joining us live in the studio to give us some in-depth analysis is Dr. Kim Byung-ju, head of K&P Consulting and a longtime Arirang News contributor.
Dr. Kim, welcome to the program.
Good evening.
Now, so clearly Koreans have more money to spend, but they're not opening up their wallets. Now, what is the reason behind this?
Right, indeed, as you mentioned, for the past several quarters, at least 4 quarters, that the numbers that we can look at actually shows the real income itself, on average, has been increasing. I'm sure some of my viewers may not feel that way as well, but this is the average figure here. And while the real income for the average household has been increasing, the overall real consumption side, it has been decreasing. All the numbers seem to be showing negative for the past 4 quarters. And in terms of reasons, I think we can come up with a long list of reasons here, but some of the major ones that seem to stand out include job insecurity as a whole. You know, the old mode of Korean work in the past was you get a job and then you retire until by the time you reach the retirement age. But that's not exactly what's happening these days. So that's one of the biggest factors here. And the housing cost itself, the housing market itself is kind of depressed in a way. And more people are seeking rental housings, and the rental cost itself is going up. So that takes big chunk out of the disposable income itself. So people have a smaller amount of money to spend on consumption for sure. And also concerns about aging itself. People are living longer. And a lot of people are worrying a lot about the retirement, post-retirement, the capacity to spend in the future. But the interesting irony is, while a lot of people are concerned about this, a lot of people seem to feel at the same time they're not ready for this.
But unfortunately, there is a serious lack of post-retirement preparation among Koreans. So how do we explain this phenomenon?
One of the first answer I can think about is we're just not used to this, because in the old mode of economic activities, as I mentioned before, after college you get a job in one of the big corporations and then you stay there until the official or normally expected retirement age. But the labor market itself is changing fast these days, so people are kind of like at a loss in terms of what to do about this as a whole. And together with that, there is increasing lifespan as a whole. The average expectation for lifespan itself is increasing in Korea, and I think at this point the average goes over age of 80, and then we are saying in a few years it will reach to the age of 83 on average, men and women combined all together. So we expect to live longer, which means we need more money for this as a whole. So that increases the overall level of readiness. And one of the key factors, I think, in Korea that's particular to Korea is the education and the second generation. You know, we spend a lot on the hagwons, the private tutoring itself, and in college spending. And also, a younger generation now tend to stay with the parents longer. They're postponing their marriage, they're postponing getting jobs, they're looking for better jobs, they argue, and they stay with the parents. So the money needs to be spent on these children here, and they're not getting married, they're not getting independent. So that also, you have your smile on your face, but that also adds a lot to the economic cost to the parents.
Well, Daniel are partially to be blamed for that, I think. But, so these factors about job insecurity and worsening redistribution, as well as housing costs, they're discouraging consumers from spending more, especially those in their late 50s who are perhaps sandwiched in between generations, and that, I guess, leads them to being unprepared for retirement.
Right, exactly. And also, economists are saying the more macro scope we need to bring into this picture, that is also worsening overall redistribution here. I emphasized at the beginning of this talk, average, meaning that it's not all Koreans who are actually enjoying this rise of real income itself. Actually, when we talk about the bottom half of the income ladder here, actually many Koreans seem to be suffering from reduced income itself. When we see the average, that's increasing, but the bottom half, they're actually suffering from the reduction in terms of their income. And what's happening is, interestingly, and maybe a lot of people knew this before, for the 1 unit of increase of income, richer people tend to spend less on that. Because poorer people, relatively speaking, they have to spend more on the food and clothing and all that kind of stuff. When there's a same unit of increase of income, lower income level people tend to spend more. But when there is a reduction in their income, of course, it's obvious to expect a reduction in consumption itself.
Well, looks like we need to roll with it and adopt the changes very quickly here in Korea. Well, for the longest time, the government has been talking about the need to boost consumption.
Right.
Now, could you point out some possibly meaningful ways to pursue this goal?
That probably is the most difficult question I've ever faced on this TV here. It's a very difficult question. And economy is all related. There are all these different factors that are linked together here. So there are so many different buttons you can perhaps hit. And some of those issues that I feel most strongly about is the adjustment to the housing market itself. The current government has been talking a lot about increasing 전세 supply and all that. I think that's a wrong focus. So allow more people supply who want to supply of these rental housings to go with a monthly payment rather than the lump sum payment itself. And that will increase overall supply of the housing and also lower the price of housing for one. There are other issues we can get into, but for the interest of time, that's one issue that I want to emphasize here.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your pearls of wisdom with us again, Dr. Kim Byung-ju, head of KLMP Consulting, and of course, no arguing there, Arirang's favorite commentator for the longest time. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gun-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korean import prices rose by 2 In the nation's political realm, fresh allegations that the nation's intelligence agency and the military cyber command launched an extensive smear campaign on the internet in the lead-up to the December presidential election have been stealing center stage in the first annual parliamentary audit under the Park Geun-hye administration. And today, it has triggered yet another row between the rival parties. Arirang News political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji reports.
The rival parties are intensifying a war of words at the National Assembly over fresh allegations that the National Intelligence Service launched an extensive smear campaign against the opposition presidential candidates on the internet and on social networking services ahead of the December election. The allegations come from testimony at a parliamentary audit on Monday by a senior prosecutor who headed a special probe into the NIS scandal before being dismissed from the team last week. The Defense Ministry's announcement this week that 4 members of the military's secretive cyber warfare command unit posted comments in favor of the ruling party on blogs and on Twitter before the December poll also added fuel to fire. The main opposition Democratic Party says the findings show that the integrity of the 2012 presidential election was compromised. They want President Park Geun-hye to apologize and provide measures to prevent similar incidents from recurring. Some Democratic Party lawmakers are even saying the 2012 presidential election was rigged and that the party must rethink whether it can accept its result. The ruling Saenuri Party has in turn strongly criticized the opposition party for questioning the legitimacy of last year's election. This row between the rival parties over the spy agency scandal has taken center stage, overshadowing the ongoing annual parliamentary audit that should focus on evaluating major government policies. If the standoff continues, it is likely to delay the passage of next year's budget and other important bills aimed at supporting President Park's economic policies after the audit ends in early November. Some say the bipartisan row may even push the parliament to adopt a provisional budget for next year, which would be unprecedented. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Apple has kicked off this year's tablet war, unveiling its latest iPads with an eye on an increasingly competitive marketplace. The new iPad will be lighter, thinner, the width of a pencil actually, and has a new name, the iPad Air. Its smaller tablet, the iPad Mini, will have a higher resolution display, faster processor, and new colors. Son Jung-in gives us a closer look at Apple's latest product lineup.
It's called the iPad Air. As its name suggests, Apple's newly released tablet is light, 20% thinner and 28% lighter than its current model. But the screen size is the same, with some of the surrounding bezel having been trimmed by 43%, giving users more room to play.
Thinner, lighter, more powerful than ever before, and incredibly, excitingly new in so many ways that it deserves a new name.
The device will go on sale November 1st at Apple stores in 42 countries, with prices starting at $499. As if that weren't enough for fans of the tech company, Apple also revealed a revamped iPad mini. The new device is physically identical to the miniature version of the original, but it too is thinner and lighter, and for the first time comes with Retina display. The new Mini will start at $399, while the price of the existing Mini has dropped to $299. Both the iPad Air and iPad Mini pack the same speedy A7 processor as the iPhone 5S and comes in two color options, silver and white, and space gray and black. Apple's latest release is sure to put pressure on its competitors, but with rivals Microsoft, Nokia, and Amazon all plugging rival devices in the coming months, it looks like the competition is just getting started. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Not exactly a threat to Apple's iPad yet, but nonetheless impressive, a North Korean tablet PC. A North Korea expert from Austria has published his review of a tablet computer produced by the North that was released earlier this year. According to their review, the device is impressive technology-wise, but there's just one drawback: no internet connectivity. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
Professor Ludger Frank from the University of Vienna in Austria has released his review of the North Korean-made tablet Samjiyeon. Professor Frank said in his review, published Tuesday on the website 38 North, he bought the tablet in Pyongyang in September for about $250. The device that he purchased was the SA70 model released in March, which has a 7-inch screen and runs on Android. The professor said that the tablet contains a total of 488 pre-installed programs, including a multi-language dictionary, reference works, and e-books. The device also comes bundled with 14 games, including Korean chess and billiards, and the professor said the images are all of a high standard. The dictionary is available in 6 languages: Korean, Chinese, English, French, German, and Russian. The professor said that the quality of the dictionary was high, citing the large number of entries and dominance of English compared to other languages. The library also contains a wide variety of materials for the study of the Juche, or military-first ideology, and writings about the ruling Kim family. The professor pointed out that it would be a good source of information for students of North Korean studies, adding that he hopes North Korea researchers will be inspired to make use of the indispensable resource. However, the professor also noted that the device seemed to have no way to connect to the internet, nor was it really extraordinary for an Android in 2013. He added that the gadget was not available to the average North Korean. But he did say that the device was satisfactory in terms of the technology and noted how rich in resources it was, saying that it's quite impressive for a country that has long been plagued by socialist inefficiencies. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The mountains of Korea are full of color these days with fall foliage in full force. We've been talking a lot about the transformations in Mount Seorak and Mount Ode recently, but they aren't the only places showing off nature's beauty.
Well, for details on where our viewers and ourselves can get their best glimpse of the fall foliage before it's too late, let's go right over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Hello there, Bo-kyung.
Hey guys, you still have a few days of the peak season for the fall foliage here in Korea. Now, the majority of the mountains began to display colors last weekend, and those peak days should continue until this coming Sunday. Now, the colorful leaves will gradually disappear in mid-November as the temperatures fall. Here in Korea, the coloring of leaves moves from the southeast regions to the north northwest, which takes us to the northeastern province of Gangwon, where Mount Seorak and Mount Ode are located. The colorful leaves on these two mountains attracted around 180 visitors just last weekend. In the central regions, we have Mount Bukhan, Mount Gaeryong, and Mount Worak, which should be perfect for you to visit this weekend. Especially in Seoul, Mount Bukhan is famous for its 71.5-kilometer long trail, which is divided into 21 sections. Moving down south, we have Mount Naejang and Mount Mudung in Jeolla province, which should decorate the finale of the fall foliage. The leaves on these two mountains just began to change colors earlier this week and should reach its peak in early November. Moving on to the weather today, it was rainy and cloudy in some parts of the southeast coast regions, and tomorrow looks to be similar to today. However, please keep in mind the temperatures will dip starting tomorrow afternoon, so make sure to bundle up. Taking a closer look at tomorrow's forecast, Seoul hits 19 degrees and cities down south make it to 21. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon and Dokdo should reach 19 degrees. Meanwhile, cloudy Mount Kumgang peaks at 12. Well, that's all I have for you this hour, and back to you guys.
Thank you for that, Po-kyung. That's all from us. Thank you for watching.
And we'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Good night.